now, love, it's a risky business and unfortunately it can sometimes end in tears. But for our next guest, it wasn't just heartbreak she was left with.
No, she was left with a very, very big bill. Her name's Rachel Elwell, and that bill totalling £113,000. She is in complete debt because of this, obviously. And, Rachel, this was all because a man you met online deceived you in the most elaborate way. You were looking for companionship, you were looking for love, and you joined a dating site, was it?
That's right, yes.
Right, so tell us what happened.
It was a free dating site, and it was originally to join to talk to people with lockdown and everything else. And if there was a possibility of romance at some point down the line, that would be a bonus. But it was conversation at that point that I joined for.
So a man called Bario got in touch with you. Why were you connected? Why was the attraction there between the two of you?
We had similar interests, and he lived sort of within 25 miles of where I lived, in Coventry, and I live in the Midlands. He had a dog, we both liked dancing, and he seemed quite fun and quite open and transparent.
Except you later learned that he didn't live 25 minutes away from you, and that probably everything he told you was a lie. But nonetheless, you formed a connection, you started talking, and you must have felt, well, this is very civilised, this is all going well, but maybe a bit too good to be true, you might have thought at some stage.
I did, yes.
Yeah. So when it came to actually saying, right, Stevie boy, let's meet up, what happened?
We were going to meet up, but obviously there were COVID restrictions, so we knew that there wouldn't be any rush and there was no urgency for that to happen. And then he said he'd won a contract to go and work in the Ukraine that he'd been working on for 4 months.
What did he tell you he did for a job?
He was an engineer.
OK, so that sounds feasible.
Yes.
So he's got a job.
But a bit unfortunate. You must have been disappointed. But all of this is working to his advantage because you're getting closer even though you're still not together.
I wasn't really disappointed because of COVID. I just thought things, whatever was going to happen, would happen in due course, so there was no urgency for me.
So he set off, as far as we knew, to this job in the Ukraine.
Yeah.
And then he asked you for money. What did he say? What was the reason?
He said that prior to all the contracts he'd worked on previously, the tax for a foreign contractor was due mid or end contract. But because of COVID regulations changing, he had to pay the tax bill before commencement of works. And the local government office had seized the equipment and stopped work on site. And he said he wasn't worried about it because it was in the budget with the investors and he would ask for early release of the Phase 2 payment. And
how much money, what was the first amount of money he asked you for?
And
did any warning bell go off?
How much? A couple of hundred. Oh,
yeah.
yes.
So, no, well, a couple of hundred.
Yeah. Massive alarm bells, though, massive.
For you?
Yes.
So
really?
why did you send it?
I didn't want to. I just said, I'm sorry, this sounds like a scam to me. I don't know you, I've not met you. Why would I send money to a stranger? And I was quite sort of belligerent with him, really, and challenging him. And I thought, there's no way I was going to send him any money. And it was quite a few days before I did. And I talked it over with my mum and my sister. And I said, well, what do you think? And I said, well, he's sorting the tax bill out. This is just for his food and his taxes. And they said, well, can you afford to lose it? And I said, well, not really. But it took me a few days and a few more conversations, but because he'd led me to believe that he was a widower from 7 years earlier and he's lost his wife to breast cancer and he brought his 10-year-old daughter up on his own, it was all of these things that were quite emotive. And I thought, he needs to get this contract done, I'll help him a little bit. So I guess I was quite magnanimous in that, but it was a very hard decision.
And was he appreciative?
Very, very much so.
Which then must have played with you. You must have felt wanted and you must have felt good about doing what you'd done.
No, I still felt a bit annoyed, to be honest with you. I just thought, you know, I haven't met you and you're already asking for help.
All right, well, you felt a bit annoyed, but then why would 250 quid lead to 113,000 quid?
Because the tax bill grew and I had a document about the tax bill, but it was when he was allegedly, and I was led to believe, that he'd been kidnapped by Russian loan sharks. So in order to pay the full tax bill that he was due to pay, we couldn't raise the money, he couldn't raise the money and he loaned it.
This is the thing, Rachel, at this point, I'm sure people watching, OK, will go, this is all starting to sound very fantastical, isn't it? There's one thing saying, look, I just need a couple of £100 just to tide me over, to I've been kidnapped by, you know, Russian whatever, and you know, they're going to kill me if you don't pay up. At this point... It
does sound incredible.
It does. So...
And I thought, this cannot be real. When he was having the conversation with me, he was screaming and crying and pleading for his life. And I mean, honestly, how that plays on your emotions is It's crazy.
And he was sending you documents that looked
And he sent
real.
me documents that the investor document, I checked it on Companies House, it was legitimate. They were worth 172 million, invested in properties and projects. So I checked that, although it's now come down. I had a letter from the tax company, and when he was locked up or I was led to believe he was locked up by the loan sharks from whom he'd borrowed a considerable amount of money for the tax bill. So I knew that had happened, allegedly. He sent me pictures lying on a 4-inch mattress in a cellar, locked up.
So you genuinely believed his life
Yes.
was at risk? Did you talk to your family at this point?
Yes, my mum and my sister were aware of everything. They were just so concerned about me from being involved in this situation and how fantastically incredible this had gone. It was like, how can this be real?
When did you find it? When did it dawn on you none of this was true?
I went to his house. I went to his house in Coventry by prior arrangement with him and his housekeeper and his daughter. I actually spoke to the housekeeper who moves in with his daughter to look after her whilst he travels abroad. Obviously, I know that's not real now, but by prior arrangement...
Was his daughter real?
I don't know if any of them are real. I believe they're all part of this
Did you
conspiracy.
meet his daughter
No.
at the house? So when you got to the house, who was there?
I was expecting his housekeeper and his daughter to be there, and the people at the house said nobody of those names lives here.
So at that point, big alarm bell must have
So
gone
on the
off.
1st of April, I knew. I went to the house. I asked to speak to the people that I'd arranged to go. He'd rung me on the way, and I'd spoken to the housekeeper that morning. It was all arranged. And I got to the house and asked for them, and they said, these people don't live here, we do. And I knew in that moment that it was all a lie.
Rachel, what has this done to your life? Where does this leave you now?
Facing financial ruin. Very depressed.
You know, the banks are in touch, and the banks have said, look, you know, you borrowed money from us. We warned you that this didn't seem right. 2 banks have said that, and you still went ahead. Why didn't you listen to those warning bells?
I had been groomed. I didn't realise that at 50 years old. I'd been groomed by online predators who were very sophisticated, manipulative criminals. I didn't know that. I thought that would never happen to me. How could that ever happen? But the banks have said that, and I understand that, but there's 2 sides to the CRM under the code that I've tried to claim a reimbursement. One is that the banks carry out all the relevant security checks, and as cybercrime evolves, they move with the times. And secondly, when they recognise victims of fraud like me, they reimburse those victims, and that's part of the contingent reimbursement model code
So you're still,
that was
I'm just
set
going
up.
to put, I can't hand this to you, but I'm going to put it there.
Thank you.
I don't wish to upset you. What message would you have for anybody else watching this, Rachel?
There's going to be loads of people they'll say, this
online
wouldn't
dating.
have happened to me. I would have spotted this a mile
I would have
off.
always said that, and everyone that I know would have said that. This can happen to anyone. The police have told me that, victim support have told me that, counsellors have told me that. So many people that I've been involved with throughout this process, in the media as well, and so many police officers, this can happen to anyone. And the reason I went public initially was to help the police raise awareness of this type of crime, to help to protect other people. And I have stopped other people with these particular criminals. But equally, I want the banks to adhere to and stand by the code that was set up to help people who are victims of fraud. So that's
a we know that that's
now.
Ongoing between you and the banks. But as you said, it's raising awareness, which hopefully you've done today. If you stop one person being involved in a scam,
please don't believe them.
Thank you very much for telling
what are you
story.
going to do? I'm just looking at that figure. You know, you work as you're a manager. You're clerical in the West Midlands. £113,000. You're not going to earn that.
No, I don't know. My life is on hold now whilst the Ombudsman review impartially the bank's decisions, and if they come back and uphold the bank's decisions, I have some very difficult decisions to make about bankruptcy, debt consolidation. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we're sorry this has happened to you. We thank you for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me.
Warning other people about what may be in store for them. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Rachel.
And it's also innocent in Rachel's case. She simply joins a dating agency to find companionship, hopefully love somewhere down the line. But instead, there's some shark waiting out there.
There's a very clever scammers out there, as you found out, sadly, Rachel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.